Hi, we're back again with another guest, a young man who's an artist, and his name is Chris Janzen.
Hello.
Chris, so glad to have you
Yes,
here today.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
I know that you've got some really interesting things to talk about because you have more than one thing you do.
Yes.
A lot of interests,
Yes,
and I know you want to talk about Art Hop.
I do. So,
Okay, tell
so,
us a little bit what's going on.
so tonight at Fresno City Hall, November the 2nd, tonight, from 5 to 8 p.m., I'll be unveiling a body of new work. It's called Foodness, is the title of the work.
Foodness.
Foodness, which is sort of referencing food references in popular culture, different personal, cultural elements that are part of our subconscious reaction to food, advertising,
Wow.
and so it's a body of playful work. A lot of it is painted on upcycled items like cupboard doors, kitchen cabinet doors. And the artwork that I make it's sort of an improvisational way of working. So I'm a professor of art at Fresno Pacific University, where I've been teaching for 10 years now. And I'm also an adjunct instructor of jazz guitar there.
Oh, wow.
And the jazz guitar playing informs my artistic process. I've never really stopped being a musician and an artist all the time. So when I start a work, I often like to keep my eyes peeled for unorthodox, less common non-art artifacts. I have a studio space that's downtown on Fresno Street, at 1929 Fresno Street, that's always open for Art Hop. That space is next to an alleyway. In the dumpster, I find all kinds of interesting styrofoam. Sometimes I glue videotapes together and bits of wood.
Wow.
And for this particular show, there's a lot. I think there's about 20 oak cabinet cupboard panels that reminded me immediately when I laid eyes on them. They remind me of picture frames. They have this classical picture frame aesthetic to them, and it got me to stop and think about the kitchen as a place full of artistic potential. So like every one of these kitchen cabinets, and you go back home and look at your kitchen cabinets, and you could potentially envision that you've got a minimalist art exhibit on your along the walls.
Well, they sure look better.
Yeah. So there's a number of pictures that I brought along with me, some
good.
digital images, and
All right.
we can start with the Fruit Loop people. Is that what's displayed right now? So the title of that piece is Loop-de-Doo. So you can see there's elements in my work. These are oil paintings. This is one of the kitchen cabinets. These are paintings that are definitely informed by the surreal art movement that started in the 1920s. Salvador Dali is a famous surrealist.
Yes, definitely.
Max Ernst, Giorgio de Chirico. These are favorites of mine. They get me excited when I flip through art history books. And so there's an automatism, sitting down with paint and letting drips determine sort of like an ink blot Rorschach test.
They do a lot of that with watercolor too. Just let it happen.
So there are elements then that are surreal. There are references to food in every one of these, as you can see. The work that's displayed right now is called Sweets. It's got a bunch of different. There's ice cream reference. There's a candy bar in the background and a wrapper. There's maybe implied sort of a lifesaver donut, kind of a ring that's around the arm of a figure there.
Yeah.
And so there's elements of surrealism. There's elements of pop art, like Andy Warhol and Richard Hamilton, favorites of mine.
Oh, you spread out and grabbed everything, right?
I did. And I create these pieces initially without a really clear plan of how they're going to turn out ultimately. And that's where my background as a jazz musician comes into play. I enjoy having guidelines, having like a framework, determine, I'm going to have a show that's about food. So somehow the topic of food is going to come up, but there's a million different ways of thinking about food.
That's for sure.
There's the enjoyment that one gets out of the ice cream and the chocolate,
And
the indulgence. There's also references. One of those pieces is called "The Ghosts of Fospa's Past," and that's a piece that references my Christian Mennonite Anabaptist upbringing.
Really?
And I'm a member at Mennonite Community Church.
Interesting.
So there are traditional foods there, like sausage on the left side there. There are a couple traditional Mennonite rolls called zwieback that are there, the sort of two part rolls that are on top of each other. And there's in the lower left corner, there's actual bits of wood with nails protruding from them. It's hard to understand these just in a flat digital image.
Yeah,
It's worth coming to Art Hop tonight.
Right,
from
that's
5 to
for
8.
sure.
See it in person.
Well, you can never appreciate those things in
Oh,
a
yeah.
tiny thing like to see them.
Yeah. The intensity of color is never the same. The actual texture is never the same. And as I said earlier, a lot of these are sort of assemblages. They're bits and pieces of cardboard and wood and collaged elements that are not the same on a digital print. And they vary in size, so the scale determines how you're going to interact with the work. It's different on a little tiny phone screen. So it's always good to go physically see artwork at Art Hop.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
There's no way. But what I'm really interested in is, how did you ever decide to become a professor and to become a professional artist?
Yeah. As far back as I can remember, I have been a person who draws. I think around the age of like 2 or 3, neighbors, like babysitters, would tell my parents, who are not artists, that this kid really focuses hard on drawing and is very attentive, and it's a little unusual for his age. And so I've always been interested in that. I went through a phase in grade school where drawing shoes was my big thing. And then, like in junior high and high school, I dug into every possible like CD and record cover that had some kind of experimental, explorative quality. So like 60s and 70s rock music albums that my parents had got me excited. And then I went to college at a school that's similar to Fresno Pacific, a small school in Kansas called Bethel College. And at Bethel, I continued to study guitar and took as many art classes as were offered, basically, and got very focused on art in particular, and decided for grad school, if I was going to continue my education, it was oil painting in particular that got me excited.
And when you started coming up with these ideas of yours in your school, how did they react to those? Did they like them?
Well, in college, as my students know right now, you start off with fundamentals, maybe not the most exciting topics. You learn about linear perspective, learn about observational drawing techniques. You stare at still life for hours and hours. You try different black and white and color media, and it's complicated. It's really hard. And so, at first, what I was doing was very traditional, really. I was interested in getting that media to reflect the thoughts in my head. And in college is when I got exposed to artists that were doing experimental things, some that are more representational and some that are more abstract. I really fell in love with the work of Lucian Freud, for example. He's a figurative artist who ironically came to fame during the abstract expressionist movement, which is kind of at odds, but that happens in art history. And so the work of thickly applied paint, texture, really got me excited. There's something about Freud's work in particular that seems simultaneously very real and vivid in a visceral way that's not just like photographically real, but something that's really bold, that is different than a photograph. And at the same time, you can see the brush strokes. You can see he's using great big inch-thick brushes sometimes. And so it's a conundrum. You know, you've got one part of your brain telling you this is a flat painting. The other half of your brain is saying, no, that's three-dimensional. You know, that's like a room you could sit in. You know, you could like wash your hands in that sink. And so that got me excited. Francis Bacon is another favorite of mine. Kind of terrifying work, really, but really beautiful at the same time.
Well, you know, it's exciting that you're teaching.
Yes.
People, you know, they hear you talking about this type of art. That's the place to go where you be their teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So tell me exactly the thing again about your place and so they can write it down on a piece of paper.
Yes, so come see my show, Foodness. It's at Fresno City Hall in downtown Fresno. You should very easily be able to find that through my website. It's on the screen there, chrisjanzen.info. You could call, you can contact me via text or call me at the number that's on the screen there, 559-825-7287. And from 5 to 8 p.m. I will be there with my paintings of food. There will be food provided, so there's some refreshments
real
as well.
Food, huh?
Yeah, so we'll see. If a few of the foods that are depicted will be on the table to eat as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just so you don't choose the wrong one. Okay, I'm just so excited you
Great.
came on the show today and
Yeah.
talked. And I hope you come back again because we really like people who are deeply into what they're doing.
Yes.
And what you're doing really proves something that I keep saying: art is in everything. Everything. You can, you know, say, "Oh, I'm not an artist. I can't." But you are. There's something in your life that you're doing that is
Yes.
artistic.
Yes,
You know?
and a creative approach to whatever field you're going into is what makes you hireable. It's what makes any endeavor succeed. The person who's creative, the person who's thinking like an artist, is going to be a better surgeon. They're going to be a better TV producer.
That's for
I mean,
sure.
they're going to be a better dentist. Whatever.
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm really so excited that
Yeah.
you're going to be at your place tonight.
Yes.
And everybody's going to go down and see this very individual, different type of wonderful art.
Great.
Okay, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Come in again.
Yes.
We'll be right back.